I'm just returning from a conference I went to in Chicago on Authoritarian Imaginaries. It's a kind of a big academic term. But part of why I like going to conferences is that on the one hand, I meet new people who are really interesting and smart, and that's just great. And I also walk away with a few nuggets. This kind of ideas, concepts, frames that I hadn't really thought of, that I continue to chew on, that I think are helpful in my own thinking about where we are in the world. So between a couple of panels, I was sitting with Judith Butler, who was one of the organizers of the conference, and we were talking, and we were kind of talking about the energy of the political moment. Like, what moves the needle? What gets people out to vote? Whether it's on the right or on the left. We were talking about this notion that Butler has of these sites of condensed excitability. Now, that's kind of a big term, but as they were talking about this idea that the right has been so able to mobilize people around anxiety, excitability about trans people, whether it's in bathrooms or in sports, it's actually been a really productive way for the right, and Trump in particular, to keep people connected to his political project. And the left has, or the middle really, the Democrats have not done a very good job of finding similar sort of concepts or sites of condensed excitability. It reminds me of Foucault's notion of how sex is a particularly dense transfer point for power, which he wrote about in his History of Sexuality. And that idea is that if we look historically and politically, power tends to both locate itself but also amplify in sex and sexuality. I mean, think of the whole Jeffrey Epstein files. What's going on around Epstein is about sex, but it's also really about power. That power is condensing itself, is transferring in and through and around sex. So I think that's something similar, Foucault's idea, to what Butler and I were talking about this weekend. And so that's the challenge for us, I think, is to mobilize on the left sites of condensed excitability that are not negative and not necessarily sexual. They need not be sexual, although sex and sexuality is an amenable place for those sorts of transfers or condensations of power. And I think if I reflect on the Mamdani campaign here in New York, that campaign, and I don't again want to say that it was about sex, but there was something that he was able to do to create condensed excitability. People connected, power was built in and through him, and it transferred through him. And that's, of course, the challenge right now, is to keep that transfer going, keep that power going. So what is it we can do to continue to discover these condensed sites of excitability that would be useful to keep people connected to a political set of political projects that would be an alternative to the authoritarianism that we see coming out of the Republican Party, Washington, and Trump. Maybe it would have something to do with sex, but not necessarily. And I think there are lessons to learn from the Mamdani campaign, as I've said, about how people get excited about something. And it needs to be something positive, I think, for our kind of values and politics. All right, that's today's nugget. Take care.